is so hurtful to us who believe that life is important for every human being.
The Senate of Texas is hearing SB 5. It's a bill that regulates abortion clinics by making them reach the same standards as ambulatory surgical facilities. The doctor providing the abortion must have admitting privileges within 30 miles of the facility. RU 486, the medical abortion must be dispensed according to FDA standards, and babies 20 weeks and over who clearly feel pain can no longer be aborted, killed, if this bill becomes law in Texas. The Senate is holding it hostage. We have a Democrat, Wendy Davis, who has pledged to stand and talk, to filibuster until the end of the session tonight at 12, and we're just praying that she needs a drink of water.
Gets thirsty, and not only thirsty for the water, but living water.
Oh, yes.
Carol, what is it that you would say to one of these young women or young men here today who have on orange shirts? Tell me what that, looking at them and seeing where they are and what their message is, what word of encouragement could you give them today?
You know, I've learned a long time ago you don't win by debating, you win by asking questions. And so I would ask them why they're here and what they believe this bill does. And what I found is they don't know what the bill does. And if possible, if I earn the right to speak by listening, then I would tell them about my own terrible abortion experience and what it did to my life, and how I believe the Lord of life is the answer to all the questions, and He can heal every hurt that's here. And what I see here today are people that wouldn't listen to me in another environment. But in this environment, I have a chance to share with them.
You know, it's interesting as we look down this line, there are very few blue shirts here today. Most of them are orange or pretty close to being orange or a little bit of tint of orange. And yet we know that God's angel army is on stand. And they've got orange shirts that said, I stand for, I don't know, stand with Texas women is what it says. What does that really mean, Carol, to people that don't understand that life is very, very precious?
I think that it's a hole in their heart until they understand the truth. And I think it goes right back to the gospel. If they don't understand the gospel, how can they understand anything else about life? And I take that, Evelyn, from my own experience and how my life was so hurt until I came to Christ. And, you know, that changes everything about you. And if these women could come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ, their lives would change. And if they've had abortions, they could find forgiveness and they could find a way to heal and go on. And as much as I'd like to say that everyone here is a happy person, what I've learned is that there's a lot of hurt and a lot of anger here today.
Well, tell me what Heidi Group does in regard to some of the specific needs that these women and these young men have, because it's a dual problem, it's a dual need, a hurt, a death, a dual death.
Yes. The Heidi Group helps girls and women in unplanned pregnancies, and through that we get the opportunity to share with the entire family. And the first thing is to solve the immediate problem, help them with that unplanned pregnancy, which is the presenting crisis. And then as we try to help them with the problems of life, we get to meet their families and their boyfriends or their husbands or their partners, and then we're able to share what Christ did in our lives, and hopefully they'll come to Christ. And our goal overall is to bring them out of whatever they're in to a level of self-sufficiency. And what we find is many of our young women don't have the ability to make a living, and we can help them be educated and find a way to make a living for their family and themselves.
What is it that you would call our churches to account for today in that regard, young men and young women that find themselves in these situations?
Well, we as the church have got to stand up. We are the answer to everything. We need to be ministering to these young men and young women, and we need to tell them the truth, and we need to be there to hold their hand to help them to that life of self-sufficiency. We've got to start mentoring, and I believe the church has a golden opportunity with all, if there are 1.2 million abortions every year, there are 1.2 million people that we could minister to. That's a huge mission field right here in our country, in our cities, in our states. So we as the church need to stand up and ask God what part we play in this work.
In the next couple of weeks, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, there is a new initiative going forth here in Austin. Of course, we're heard worldwide on Point Broadcasting, but we're here in the state capitol building in the capital of Texas. And in the next month or 6 weeks, there's going to be a new initiative called Explore God, which churches, there are 200 pastors in this city that have said and understood what you've just said. We've got to get involved. Got to get involved. What is it that you would say to a young person, a young woman today, who might find herself that she is pregnant? Where would you send her, first of all, for help?
She could go online to the crisis pregnancy centers or pregnancy resource centers. It's probably in there both ways. She can go to the telephone directory and find pregnancy resources, and go to a pregnancy center, to a life-affirming pregnancy center, and they will tell her the truth about everything, including abortion. It's time for her to heal. This is a lifelong decision. She needs to consider it. There's no rush. Go to your pregnancy resource center. Let them help you with the truth, and they will help you. They'll explore adoption, and they'll explore parenting, and they'll tell you the truth about abortion.
How different is that message from what some of these young men and young women here are hearing today about human life and what the real bills are that we're here to examine today?
They've been told that there's a complete ban on abortions. That's not what happens. This is a health protection for women to make certain that the abortion clinics make the same standards as any ambulatory surgical facilities, the doctors meet the same standards, and that the drugs are dispensed according to FDA standards. And obviously, we don't want abortions at 20 weeks when babies feel pain. These people are here today, and they may have been told that it was not a baby, that there was no risk, and yet many of them are maimed. And we know that we have terrible abortionists right here in Texas doing the very same things we saw in the Gosnell Clinic in Pennsylvania. It's time for us to stand up, and when these women know the truth and they see it in love, their lives change.
One of the things that we know because of the research that we've done is the result in the emotional and spiritual area that comes into the lives of not just young women, but women maybe like you who was married and made that wrong choice. What is it that we could say to them today to encourage them?
We need to encourage them, and we need to tell them the truth. If I wish one person had said to me, you don't have to have an abortion. If there'd been one person that had said there's a different way, I would have made a different choice. And we need to be there to say there is a different way, and we will help you. And we need to link arms and walk through it with them.
You know, we mentioned earlier that the blue shirts are very few in these lines, very few. But where they are basically, I think, is in the prayer closets, in our homes, in our offices, because we are part of God's angel army, and we've got a power that many of them do not have, but they need. What is it, Carol, that we would say to Christians today? Those who believe in life, those who believe that Jesus is pro-life. He came for life. If they're listening to us today, what is it that we could tell them? What good news could we tell them that would let them know that God loves them, whether they've had an abortion or getting ready to have one?
Well, Jesus Christ is the answer, and I think God sent us an incredible message when He sent Jesus Christ in what today would be considered an unplanned pregnancy. Think about that. Over 2,000 years ago, God sent us a message in the form of His Son who brings salvation, living water to us if we accept Him. And I think we, the church, need to sit back and thank Him for that, obviously. And then I think we need to say, Lord, what part do I play? You know, He gives us gifts. We're not all the same. So He's given us a gift. So, Lord, what part do I play in stopping this horror? And it's very important, Evelyn. Our nation is on a moral decline, a terrible moral decline. And I can't help but believe if we could turn this around, if we would say to God, we want to stand up, He would bring revival. And I believe the start of it would be ending abortion, because in '64 we took prayer to schools, and 40 years ago we legalized abortion. And God works in 40-year cycles. It's time for us to stand up as the church and say, stop, Lord, what can I do to help you stop this?
Well, we want to thank you, Carol, for taking the time out of the duties that you have here, and you have been so faithful. You have just been an army all by yourself in regard to letting these issues and these things be made public. And as we would do that today, we just want to ask our audience to pray for you, because it is a powerful thing that God has called you to do. And the other thing is that you've made a mistake in your life. And what has God done with that mistake?
He's taken that mistake, and I pray used it for good to save lives, save other lives. And I pray thousands of other lives, more lives than I was ever part of taking. And, I've got a call to tell the truth. What happens with it is up to him, and it's his call, not mine. And so thank you. Thank you for all you do, because it's good to be on the right side.
We love you, and thank you for coming. We have been talking to Carol Everett. Carol is the CEO of Heidi Group, and she has been actively involved for months and months in helping legislators here at the state capitol come to an awareness of what real life is and the importance of protecting unborn babies, baby humans that do not have an opportunity to have life. And so as we say thank you to her, welcome back to On Point Broadcasting. We are broadcasting live here from the Texas State Capitol in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas has a motto that hangs in our airport, that the first people who arrive, that's one of the first things they see. And that airport motto that's hanging there says, "Keep Austin weird." Well, we don't believe that Austin is all that weird, because we do know there are many, many people in this city, those who are here today at the Capitol, to speak against an atrocity that is being presented to many young men and young women today. And on point, I have Bryn McAuliffe, and Brian is from San Marcos, Texas, and he does have a heart for life and for little baby humans. So welcome, Brian.
Well, thank you very much.
Tell me why you're here today.
Well, I'm trying to get the message out that when we talk about abortion, it gets clouded by issues like women's rights and other things. And what we're talking about is killing an innocent human being. And it all boils down to that. And so should one human being have the right to kill an innocent human being? And I think society needs to say no to that.
Tell me why this burden is so heavy on your heart.
Well, because I hate seeing innocent people killed. Over the years, I've unfortunately have recovered some dead bodies, and it's just very sad, especially when it's a child. And to think that people could kill their own child, to me, I mean, the greatest moment in my life was when my daughter was born and they put that little baby in my arms. And now I think, how could anybody kill this child? And so that's why I have such great passion for this.
You know, Brian, we live in a society today where truth is not presented in a lot of the media. We don't get the real truth of what abortion is and the result of years of that being a part of life in America. Let's talk about some of the stats of some of the things that have changed in America as a result of that choice that many women make to kill their own life.
Well, the trouble is that they aren't told about the after effects, that actually a woman that has an abortion is 35% more likely to be dead within 1 month after her abortion compared to natural childbirth. They aren't told that she's more than likely, almost twice as likely to be dead within 10 years. And that's because if you look at the suicide rate, the drug use rate, just the depression among women that have had abortion, it is between 4 and 6 times greater than women that don't have abortions.
4 to 6 times greater. What is the long-range mentality or damage that comes to young women that you're aware of who have had abortion?
Well, the thing is that I have, in my position, I actually talk to a lot of women that are now older and they can't have any more children and they've aborted their children. And the psychological effect on that, the emotional drain that it has on them is just devastating. I've seen women that have, even though they have achieved success in business, that they feel like their life is totally empty because they don't have any children and they don't have grandchildren. And it really hurts them. And they tell me that if they can go a couple of days without crying about their lost child, then that's a good time. But that they suffer from it, and it is hard for them to find the healing.
Where do you direct them to find people who care enough about them to help them heal?
Well, actually, there's a group called it's Rachel's Workshop. And that's the Rachel Centers and the Rachel Workshops. These are for women that have had abortions. And so what we do, actually just a week ago, I paid for a woman to have a babysitter over the weekend so she could go to a weekend workshop. And it was 30 years since she had her first abortion. And afterwards, she sent me a note and said, "Thank you so much. I think I'm on the road to healing."
You know, it is a process, isn't it, Brian? It doesn't happen overnight. But, you know, I interviewed Carol Everett earlier, and Carol had an abortion and she had 2 children because of the pressure from her husband not to have any more children. But it's in her life, and I know that you experience this with a lot of the young people that you've worked with through the years, it is a long-standing problem that never is resolved in regard to the guilt and some of those things that happen. But more importantly than that is that it is important to get really good health care, and that's not available in many of the rural areas around Austin and in Texas. And it's not really safe for a woman, basically, to have an abortion.
Well, no, because so often women have complications and they're out on their own then, and they don't know what to do if they start having internal bleeding and hemorrhaging. And so it is a very sad statistic that they don't really know what to do. And we've had cases like down in Houston where the women have called the health centers and they've been told to go elsewhere to get follow-up care. And so I just feel sorry for the women that they get seduced into this. The lies about abortion that make young women think it's acceptable and they think it's not going to hurt them, when in reality it does. And by the way, it also affects young men. I have had men in their 50s come and cry over a beer because they talked their girlfriend or wife into having an abortion. Now they realize they killed their son or daughter.
One of the things that happens so often to women, or young women, or young girls, is the pressure that's put on them to remove the problem. How do you address that, Brian?
Well, the good thing is here in Texas we have over 200 pregnancy resource centers in Texas, plus almost every Catholic parish has a Gabriel Angel Project. And so there are a tremendous amount of resources that are available for women and for their babies. That there's women right now that are in our program, our Gabriel Angel program, that their child's like a year old, approaching a year, and occasionally they still need some help. And we're there, and they know we're there to give them that help. It gives them the courage to take on the responsibility to be a good mom. But they know that somebody's there if something unexpected happens. We paid for car repairs and occasionally for rent and things like that when they've run a little bit short because of emergencies. And with the Pregnancy Resource Center, so many of them offer life skill classes as well, so that we help them understand how to budget and how to manage their lives better.
How would a young woman or a young man get in touch with you and have an opportunity to hear you share your heart? Can you give that information?
Well, actually, sanmarcuscatholic.org is my church website. And so on there's a tab for pro-life ministries. And if they go down there, there's an email. And so they can email me. And whatever we can do to help them. And when I've said I a few times, I have a great organization behind me, and that the church and all the people involved in the community. And in San Marcos, we have Central Texas Life Care, and they're a great organization also. And there are so many wonderful people here in the Central Texas area, and they're willing to help people. And so reach out, ask for that help. Be a hero. Save your baby's life.
be a hero and save your baby's life and possibly your life, right?
That's correct.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate you joining us today for Love Talks on Point, and just want to thank you for taking your time to be here to be an example to all of these in line who are wearing orange today, because they are confused. They don't know the truth.
They are misguided people. They are misguided people, and we need to get the truth out. They need to know what the reality is and not believe the lies they've been fed by the mass media.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have been talking with Brian McCauley and talking here in the state capitol in line that goes into the Senate chambers and the gallery where many, many are here today to witness and be a part of the signing or the non-signing of a pro-life bill that the representatives and the senators have worked hard on for months and months and months. And so that's what is here behind me is just a line of people that are waiting to get in, that they might witness this particular time. Welcome back to On Point Broadcasting. We are live today in the capital of the state of Texas. Right outside the Senate chamber, where there is a major filibuster going on in regard to a bill that is called Section 5, which presents 4 new things regarding life in the state of Texas. And with me is my new friend, Mitchell Hood, who is our cameraman and our producer, and we want to take a little bit to thank you, Mitchell, for being here and making it possible for us to broadcast today.
Yes, I'm thankful for being here and be a part of this great event here at the state capitol, talking about the abortion issue. I want to give a little history of myself. I almost made that life-changing decision when I had, when I was still in high school. I was a senior, and I got my girlfriend at the time pregnant. And the decision came to mind was to abort, my unborn child at the time, and that decision came across where we sat down and actually talked about it. And but God came to my mind and my thoughts at a young age, and he was talking to me and telling me that abortion was murder, and the best decision that I need to make was to be that parent of that child and to make the best decision possible I possibly can. And so with that in mind, I made that decision. But a lot of people need to be aware of the choice of life. And we make that life decision. And it was hard for me because I did finish high school, but it was hard for me because I was a young parent, had to work 2 jobs to support my family at the time, no college degree. And so it was difficult for me to kind of make ends meet. And so that's the issue that's facing with young people today, and also single parents, because them bringing a newborn life into this world and how they're going to raise that child, how they're going to feed that child, how they're going to nurture that child or educate that child in making those right decisions. And so there was one issue that I'd like to point out here as we see this line here at the state capitol and about women's health and choices. The Lord blessed me to have 3 children, and I'm very thankful when I made that life decision, because my son is 17 now. He's playing football. He's very healthy, and he accepted the plan of salvation when he was 10 years old. And so for me making that life decision, I am thankful for that today and how God blessed me, and knowing that the road was hard, but he blessed me. And on my second marriage, before my 6-year-old was born, there was something else that God wanted to show me. So my little girl at the time, we went to get the sonogram done, and my little girl was this tiny inside that sonogram, and God was saying, if you listen to this heartbeat, this is life. At the beginning of conception, life begins with that child. And a lot of people are not aware of when they take that innocent life away, God created that life to be down here for a reason. And when we put our own decisions in our own hands without properly praying to God, and a lot of people, if they're not aware about the plan of salvation, God is out there to help you at this hour to make that life decision. If you don't know him as your personal Savior, take this time out, and Lord will talk to you. And if you don't know God personally, just like I didn't know him many years ago, you can make that life decision. And it could be tough and it could be hard, but through him, you can make that right decision.
And you know, the life decision comes with some great promises, Mitchell. But the most important thing, it comes with a power package, a powerful thing that Jesus himself said that he would impart to us. He said, I go away, but I prepare a place for you, and I'll come again. But more importantly than that was he said that life is life, and I have come that you can have abundant life. Okay, and thank you so much, Mitchell, for all you've done to make it possible for us to be here. And we do say that there is hope in America. The scripture that comes from Matthew 12:21 says, in his name the nations will find their hope, will put their hope. And we do believe that's one of the reasons God birthed this nation, is that we would be a nation that would put forth hope and not be like a Nazi Germany where the grace race was discounted and really just absolutely eradicated. And so we thank you, and we have been coming to you live from the Senate chamber here in the state capital of Texas, Austin downtown, and thank you for joining.